People are constantly raising the bar.
Sacrifices need to be made.
What would you guys say are your biggest weaknesses?
You are your enemy right now.
Is success a lie?
Just a fucking podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Student Side Hustle. This week I'm speaking to Brad Loomis from 3DMJ. So Brad is a WNBF pro bodybuilder. He is also a USAPL master powerlifter, which just blows my mind because he has scoliosis and spondylolisthesis, which is very, very hard to say, but it's crazy like what he's done with those two conditions. And that's something that I think is really crazy. And I think what's allowed him to do that is the coaching sort of group that he's in. They have an amazing, amazing mindset, and I'm a huge fan of the way they coach. Brad, how did you start lifting? How did you start bodybuilding, powerlifting, all of that, and coaching? How did this all start?
Alrighty. Well, I guess, James, you better pull up a chair and start drawing out drawing utensils, because this might take a while. But I started like most folks, just kind of dabbling, with weightlifting and things like that when I was a teenager, and like most folks, never really serious, but it was about probably 1999. I was actually diagnosed with the spondylolisthesis, and I was just getting really into lifting, and I was kind of by accident finding good programs and good techniques that got me some pretty good visible results, not only on my physique, but then also loads on the bar and strength and things like that. But then, about a year or so, into that whole discovery, I was diagnosed with spondylolisthesis, and I was just a little bit scared and was thinking to myself, you know what, you need to do this the rest of your life. You need to be training. You need to be, of course, back then I called it working out. You need to be doing some sort of strength training essentially for the rest of your life, because this is a fairly, serious condition that most people require surgery for because of the pain and the numbness in their legs and things like this. And that's when really the whole evolution kind of kicked off, was right there with that. And so, I started taking strength training in general very seriously. And then also, I guess just overall mobility, health, or, however you want to call that, just making sure that I was keeping on top of my hip mobility and posture. Posture was really big for me back then. And then, the whole evolution continued about probably a year or two later when I had my son and fell in love with being a dad and kind of discovered that I'm kind of a natural father figure / coach / mentor, I guess you might say, to folks. And it kind of furthered my passion. And I was like, you know what? I want to be around. I want to be around for a long time so that I can see father figure, mentor, coach my son's grandkids. You know what I mean? And that kind of started a fire that was like, I'm going to do this forever. Even if there comes a day that I can't lift a barbell, I'm still going to train in some capacity. And that evolution kind of transferred into bodybuilding. Of course, I didn't know it at the time, but I thought, bodybuilding is the perfect competitive outlet for me because it's healthy and it helps feed my passion of longevity and battling this spondylolisthesis that I've got. Competed quite a few years in bodybuilding. And then in 2008, I got to meet Alberto at a competition that we did together. And that was really kind of the very, very infancy of what would become 3D Muscle Journey. Because Eric and Alberto had already met the year prior through mutual bodybuilding competitions that they were doing. Alberto and I met in 2008 And then come 2009, Eric was competing in a competition with Jeff.
Right.
And unbeknownst to them, I had met Jeff quite a few years earlier. And so it's kind of this crossing of several paths that kind of formed 3DMJ.
Yeah.
Now, me, myself, I'm not going to say that I was the brainchild behind it, because really the brainchild behind it was Jeff being the originator of 3D Muscle Journey, and then Eric kind of wanting to propel it forward.
Yeah.
And through just our very early friendship, the friendship that was kind of in infancy, they invited me to kind of go along for the ride. Because I was owning a business at the time. I was owning a gym. So their thinking was, this guy, Brad, not only is he a pro bodybuilder that just earned his pro card with a really good work ethic, but he also is very business savvy, And so that was kind of, I guess, my foot in the door. And then after that, kind of the rest is history. 3D Muscle Journey, escalated from there. So that's at the end of popcorn and movie time, story time.
So
that's kind of the evolution.
Because the thing that sort of strikes me about this whole thing is, a lot of times, and a lot of people have told me sort of, James, you shouldn't do bodybuilding because you have scoliosis, and you shouldn't do this because you have scoliosis. And I think maybe it's due to people's perceptions of what bodybuilding is, but I think, how do you respond to the sort of comment or the sort of criticism saying bodybuilding's bad for you, you're always going to end up injured, you're always going to end up worse than you would otherwise? Like someone said to me a while ago that basically every bodybuilder ends up wrecked at the end of their career. How would you sort of respond to that? Because personally, I don't think that's true. What's your sort of response to that?
Typically, my response is more through experience. Bodybuilding and powerlifting has kind of saved me.
Yeah.
So I think it's unfair to just categorize everybody as saying all bodybuilders end up wrecked, and all powerlifters end up wrecked, because I'm sure that that's a very small percentage, and I would imagine that a smaller percentage of those folks would probably have ended up wrecked anyway, just because of genetic issues, and things that you're kind of destined to get almost in a way, either through lifestyle or just the way God made you, But that would be kind of my typical response is, really, it saved me, because most folks in my shoes end up having to get something like you've got, where you end up having to have a reduction of two of the vertebrae with a fusion and hardware placed to keep that from happening again and to keep those vertebrae in place, right? And most people end up there because of, pain, numbness in the legs, inability to really ambulate, just walk, And so their only recourse, if they want to live a normal life, is to have this surgery. Well, I've been either very, very lucky, or just happened to stumble upon the recipe for success that's kept me from there.
Yeah.
And, I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but that's typically my response is, here's what I've experienced.
Yeah.
And then you can take that, kind of however you want it.
Yeah. Like, the thing that blows my mind is, wait, how do you know? Did you say 47?
I am going to be 47 in October, yes.
Yeah. So, with these issues, and that you're 47, you're still, doing powerlifting at such a high level, that blows my fucking mind. And, that's exactly what I want to be able to do when I'm your age. Like I'm currently 19, and I'm like, okay, how can I lift for longevity for as long as possible? Because it's, one, I love it so much, but two, I think it's for me, it's been a tool of holy crap, I am in control of my body. I can if I have pain somewhere, I can figure out a way to fix it. Whether it works the first time, whether it takes 8 tries and then you figure it out. I think it's better to know than to sort of just sit there, rest, never do anything, and let it affect you. What would be your tips for sort of maintaining longevity? And sort of just generally in the gym, being safe and doing stuff that works for you and your biomechanics and all that, and sort of, making sure you can lift for as long as possible. Yeah,
and, even, I guess, before I answer that, just kind of digress. I really truly believe that weight training in general, or at least weight training in today's age, is kind of our fountain of youth. I really do believe that. It's kind of unfortunate that we live in a day and age where we kind of have to do weight training because, probably we were meant to be hunter-gatherers, and climb trees and mountains and gather food and take care of our families, So it's kind of like our weight training is now the replacement since we don't have to do that anymore, right? But I think that the biggest tip that I would give, somebody would just be start discovering weight training.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't get too in depth, because obviously everybody's different a little bit. I can't, I'm not qualified to start prescribing things, but get in the weight room. Yeah. Get in the weight room and start lifting weights. And really, if you think about it, from an anatomical standpoint, and I kind of came to this conclusion back early on when I was, diagnosed with spondylolisthesis and scoliosis. Our bones are kind of the foundation, but our bones don't move our bodies. You know what I mean? Our muscles are what move our bodies, and so therefore, without those muscles, we're basically a pile of bones on the floor. The only way that we can stand erect is through our muscles holding all of those bones together. And so, the stronger that you can make those muscles, the stronger you can maintain good posture. The better off you are, whether you have a spinal condition or not. Those vertebrae are literally like a string of pearls that are just kind of hanging, stacked up between your hips. And so without the muscles connecting to those vertebrae, they're just a pile of blocks on the floor. And so the more you can develop those muscles and the stronger they are, the easier you can hold good posture. And therefore, the better you can support those bones and all of the connective tissue that's, kind of stapling them together, I guess you might say, or stringing them together, like the intervertebral discs. If you have good muscular development that's kind of holding those spaces apart, that's less wear and tear on the disc. And that really kind of goes with all the joints, So, that would be my first advice: is you just get in the gym and start doing some weight training. You don't have to do anything heavy. If you've been lifting your cell phone, a 5-pound dumbbell is now overload. And then take it from there. Do simple, easy stuff that is basically more than what you have been doing, which is nothing. And then let it evolve from there. You're going to have trials and errors. You're going to make mistakes. A lot of times you can cut down on that trial and error and those mistakes by hiring a professional like a personal trainer or a coach or somebody that can guide you and help you to make shortcuts. But the biggest thing is get your foot in the door and start doing some weight training, because I really am convinced that God made our bodies to perform. Like I said, maybe it was hunting back then. Now we got to find a replacement for that.
I feel like everyone. I think I don't understand how everyone doesn't have something or some sport or some activity that they do. I feel like for me, it's naturally just sort of gone to weightlifting. It used to be distance running, but now it's just weightlifting, and I feel like I couldn't stop. I barely want to take a rest week. It's like I don't even want to take a week out of the gym. Like maybe it's a negative thing, maybe it's too much, but personally I just think it's absolutely changed my entire mindset on life, and like it's made me feel a lot less fear of the future. And if this is okay, tell me if this is too far, but when it comes to that sort of fear of the future with your spinal conditions, a lot of people with scoliosis are very, very scared of the future. And for myself, still there's a lot of fear. Like there's a lot of thinking, okay, when I'm 40, will I be able to like pick up my kids? Will I be able to do X, Y, and Z? Like, there's heaps, and like there's just so much to think about. But when it comes to fears of the future or like managing those, did you used to have them a lot as a kid, and like how do you still have them now, and how has that sort of progressed?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's almost kind of a life coaching question in a way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I certainly don't mind responding to those, at least in how I've been taught and how I handle, fears. Because I mean, take it from me, I'm a big time sinner when it comes to I'm constantly in fear. And the reason I say that is because God says in the Bible 365 times or something like that, do not fear. And so the fact that I'm fearful, I really have to beat myself over the head and say, why? Why are you fearful all the time? I grapple with it all the time, constantly. But, a long time ago, I was exposed to motivational folks. Yeah. And it kind of taught me through those different avenues that, fear should be treated as a trigger. Fear is something that should tell you, if you're experiencing fear about something, don't just lay there and let it happen to you. Let it run you over, If you break it down to the very, caveman aspect of it, if I see a big frickin' animal and I'm afraid of it and I'm afraid for my life, am I going to lay there and let it do its thing to me? No. I'm going to do one of two things. I'm either going to run like hell, or I'm going to fight, for survival. And I think that's kind of a basic instinct that sometimes we get, suppressed, because it is hard. It's freaking hard to fight fear and to do something to combat fear, but it's just like any discipline, the long-term payoff from that is, the payoff from that is long-term. It's not immediate. You know what I mean? And so, a lot of times I just, if I'm fearful about anything, if I'm fearful, a good example is because I'm in healthcare, I see disease all the time. Yeah. And so I'm fearful of getting disease and things that I can't control, cancer, congestive heart failure, things like that. And so I just make sure and I get my raw fruits and vegetables every day, because that's supposed to be the biggest thing that fights cancer and disease and things like that, is all those phytochemicals that are in raw fruits and vegetables, So I get my 5 to 9 servings of raw fruits and vegetables every friggin' day. And I mean raw. It's not cooked. If that's what the experts say, that's what I'm going to follow. And because I'm fearful of getting those diseases, I do something about it. Yeah. And then secondly, my good friend Eric Helms, who you've interviewed in the past, enlightened me quite a few years ago when he basically said, if you think about it, fear of anything is not really a thing. It's like a non-tangible thing. Yeah. And you don't have a crystal ball. You don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And to think that you can is really like the utmost of being conceited, you know? Yeah. Because you're actually thinking that you're godlike and you can predict the future, and you do need to be fearful of this thing that is not even real, that's out there, And that was really big for me. I was like, you know what? Yeah, number one, fear should be a trigger for me to do something about it. And why do I still grapple with it? I don't know. I guess I'm just a little bit weak in that sense. But yeah, fear is not a real thing. It's not something that you should base decisions on, because it's you can't predict the future. Yeah. You want to try to more deal with the facts and use your fear as a trigger to do something about it.
And sort of use it to evaluate, like, okay, I'm scared of X. How do I combat X and stop X happening? I think exactly. Like, I assume weight training has sort of been that for you. Like, you've sort of figured, like, okay, this could be a bad thing, but how can I combat my spinal issues? What are the things that I can do? And I think so. When it comes to being a powerlifter and being a bodybuilder, I think it's insane, like, how you've been able to do that while with these conditions. Do you feel like those conditions have limited you at all, or do you think they've sort of just been like in the background, something that you've just sort of kept on the back of your mind? But do you think they've influenced what you've done and how you've done it? Or do you think it's sort of like, okay, I was going to do these things anyway. Yeah. How have they influenced your bodybuilding and powerlifting, and how have you had to account for them over the years?
Well, I think that, first of all, if there's anything that's limited me in bodybuilding, it certainly was not my spinal issues. It was more so my symmetry.
Yeah.
God gave me a great big thick waist. I'm 31 inches from bone to bone, and bodybuilders need to have like 27, 28 inch waist, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think it's just my structure of bone, that made my symmetry that limited me in bodybuilding. But the conditions that I have, I think probably, they could have limited me. Maybe I couldn't have. Maybe I could have progressed more in strength if I didn't have, my conditions. And don't get me wrong, it's not like it's been all sunshine and rainbows. I've been through bouts of having pain and having to deal with it and having to digress a little bit and kind of start from scratch. And it's been kind of a learning process. But through all of that, that stemmed from, spinal conditions, I became a pretty smart bodybuilder and powerlifter, making sure to, do things that we know work, like keeping on top of my deloads, every 4th, 5th week, right? And making sure that I fully recover from the previous block of training. Making sure I'm not reckless with my technique, making sure that each and every rep, while, it may slow down, through fatigue and through, muscular fatigue and whatnot, every rep basically looks the same. It's just the next one's a little bit slower, and the last one is in slow motion, compared to the first one. So it's made me very aware of keeping good technique and keeping good posture. People underestimate posture. I really do. I think if you've got a spinal condition, working to maintain posture is kind of your secret weapon, and so, I think that, my conditions kind of gave me the knowledge and maybe even the wherewithal to obtain that knowledge.
Yeah, definitely.
In order to keep doing what I'm doing, and be a little bit safer.
I think it's been quite similar for me as well. I think it sort of made me realize that I cannot just be the bro in the gym. I think it sort of made me realize I need to learn as much as I can so I can lift safely and make it be a benefit to my spinal condition, not like a deficit. And I think it could be a deficit if I was doing stupid things. But I think it's a very intelligent way that you've sort of gone about it. Could we talk about...
I think there's a lot more positives than negatives, that's for sure. Obviously it's not a good thing to be crooked and to have this potential, to have it be harmful down the road. But I think that what you gain from it is just like anything challenging. I think there's more positives from it than benefits. The negatives, excuse me.
I think it's so beneficial. One of my other guests, Mo Samuels, he's sort of a bodybuilder from the UK. And basically his sort of philosophy on it, he has lymphedema. So it's like basically lifelong, never going away. He's going to have it forever. But I sort of related with him quite a lot because it's sort of like he sort of said, yes, I've got this thing, but I cannot change it. And I feel like it's made me who I am today in a very, very positive way. And I feel like that is something that I think more people, if they have this negative thing about them or this perceived negative thing about them, they just take it in their stride and just let it be and learn from it, sort of thing. When it comes to, you mentioned posture, without getting into prescribing or getting into trying to do anything too technical, is there any things that you believe have sort of helped your posture over the years or helped you sort of maintain back health?
Well, awareness is obviously the first thing, right? Some people, they don't even know what good posture is. And, I think that's kind of the big thing that I came to the conclusion of is good posture is this. You know what I mean? Shoulders are back. The lumbar spine has its normal lordosis, Feet are shoulder width or just slightly apart so that your hips can, be on top and your vertebrae can hang there between your hips.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like, what can I do to try to maintain that alignment, that stance as much as possible?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's not possible to just stand all the time,
Yeah.
right? But I try as much as I can to stand. I try to avoid sitting. And I think a lot of times people will, it's kind of hard to maintain good posture because, like I told you earlier, what are our vertebrae but just a stack of blocks, and so it does take a certain amount of muscular strength and a certain amount of muscular endurance just in order to maintain good posture.
Yeah.
And so, it's funny because I see people all the time in church and we're kneeling, because we're Catholics. So we stand up, we kneel, we stand up, we kneel, we sit, we stand up, we kneel, we stand up, we kneel. But they're kneeling and they have to stick their butt out and rest their butt against the pew, right?
Yeah.
And I know that because I've been there. When I was a teenager, my low back would get tired, and I couldn't maintain that posture. I had to kind of let my butt fall back against the pew, and kind of slouch a little bit. So that was one thing that I kind of learned is through trying as much as I can to stand, right? A certain amount of just lower back fatigue would occur. My low back would get tired, right? However, it's just like kind of that fundamental weight training progression. You keep doing it, and even if you don't have a progression to where like I'm standing more now, it accumulates. Every day that I'm standing accumulates on all the previous days that I was standing, and pretty soon I could stand effortlessly for hours sometimes, and not have lower back fatigue, right? And so now, when my son and I go to church, I can just kneel. I can just kneel there effortlessly.
Yeah.
I could kneel the entire 1 hour mass.
Yeah.
And it's my son that gets tired and has to lean his butt back against the pew, right?
Yeah.
So just sometimes little things just kind of add up, and just trying to make yourself, stand up when your back is a little bit tired, and then outside of that, to kind of expand on that, if I experience, I won't even call it pain. I experience the greatest amount of soreness when I'm sitting and when I can't maintain good lumbar lordosis and my back kind of rounds. If you kind of think about it, a lot of times when you're sitting, your back just kind of naturally just kind of rounds, because your hips are just kind of, they're all stacked up right on top of each other, right? And so I avoid sitting as much as I can. Now, obviously, I have to sit sometimes. I have to sit when I'm, at the hospital working at the CAT scan machine.
Yeah.
My back doesn't get so much tired. My legs do, right? So sometimes I gotta sit just to rest my legs. But if I'm not standing, or training or rarely sitting, I try to just lay flat on my back.
Yeah.
And so if I go to a movie, I go to one of those IMAX movies that's got the recliner, and I just recline that sucker for 2.5, 3 hours or whatever that I'm watching that movie, and I just lay flat on my back. And I do that quite a bit. I sleep on my back. If the family and I are watching a television show, I lay flat on my back. So at least 75 or 80% of my life is either standing or laying flat on my back. Yeah. And I think that's helped a great deal of my posture and therefore kind of battling the conditions as well.
Yeah. I think, personally for me, I've been trying to... I noticed sometime last year I was getting a lot of low back pain. This was when I was still trying to squat, trying to deadlift. And, recently I've sort of realized I'm not built for them at all. Just no matter what weight I put on the bar, it feels horrible. But I found at my university, we have standing desks, so you can actually do your study while standing. And I found that's been it's been night and day for me. It's just, I don't know what it is, but would you say, without getting too technical, is it something to do with anterior pelvic tilt? Or over too much of that?
if I'm in, yeah, again, not getting too technical, because I always get anterior and posterior pelvic tilt backwards, because it always makes me wonder,
Right.
the anterior going up or is the anterior going down? But
I think it's like you know how Donald Duck stands, like very, say this is the back,
yeah,
like very
exaggerated lordosis.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, for me, when I sit, I get the exact opposite. I get that low back that's rounding and my
Right.
butt's kind of tucking under.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I guess it probably just kind of depends on the individual. I guess I just now came to the realization that some people might sit the other way, you know, to where their butt does kind of stick out a little bit, right? But yeah, I experience myself the most amount of pain when I get that back rounding, that low back rounding.
Yeah.
And it's probably not indeed rounding, you know, because there's a certain amount of built-in lordosis that we've got there. But just even if I'm not as lordosed, if that's even a word or a term, for long periods of times, it seems to put me under. You know, I really need to maintain good kyphosis through the T-spine, good lordosis through the L-spine, and do that, or at least find strategies that do that, like I said, the majority of the time, 75-80% of my life.
Yeah. I feel like it's very, once you've sort of got your, I found for many years I didn't have any pain, and I started having pain. And then I feel like once I feel like, especially in the last probably year, I feel like I've really learned how to manage a lot of it, especially low back pain. Like, I don't remember the last time when my low back pain was like debilitating or anything like that, it's almost like I've completely forgotten about it, and I hope it does not come back. We'll see. But now it's more like upper back pain, which is very frustrating, but slowly fixing it. But what about when it comes to the big three? Because, and we'll go off your experience here. We don't need to try and like give advice for others, because I think it's, as we said before the show, it's very, very, very individual, and it depends on, there's so many factors that go into it. But has there been any issues for you with the big three, and how have you sort of had to go about changing them, or go about them?
Yeah, I think, and like I said earlier, don't get me wrong, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. You know, there have been times when I've had to deal with low back pain, and I have had to deal with sciatica, you know, where I'm experiencing pain like in my butt cheek, you know, or something like that, way out in my hip. But yeah, when it comes to the big three, you know, I think a couple of the things that I discovered early on was that I had to kind of resort to deadlifting sumo style. Because it seemed like the more and the longer that I deadlifted conventional, that's when I would really start to get, you know, what I call flare-ups in my back.
Right.
Or sciatica would start showing up, you know, things like that. And so, yeah, I kind of had to just resort to pulling sumo. And really for a long time, I thought if you have back issues, you want to pull sumo, because it's a more upright position, you know, you're using more of the hips and less of the hamstrings, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I've since kind of learned that that's not necessarily the case, but at least for me, pulling sumo, you know, especially in competition, was not only stronger, but I could actually do it. I could actually train, you know, pulling sumo. When it comes to the squat, you know, I kind of, as much education as I have in squatting, like every time we get certified in the Russian kettlebell certification, you literally get 2 hours of instruction on squatting. And even then, you still want to work on your education, your knowledge, and your perpetual improvement of squatting technique. And so, over the years, you know, every time I think I've got it figured out, I learn something new. But like the big epiphanies that I've had, you know, with when it comes to squatting is, again, not only maintaining good posture, but then maintaining good hip mobility. So not only warming up the hips in a dynamic fashion prior to squatting, but then making sure that the hips are the dominant movement when you do squat.
Yeah.
You know, the hips should really be doing the majority of the action and the majority of the movement.
Yeah.
And so when I came to that conclusion that, okay, I'm not bending at the knees, you know, I'm shooting my hips back and then trying to get my hips back underneath the bar as quickly as I can while maintaining good posture. Yeah, that was a big epiphany for me, you know. And as I kind of found out through experience, low bar squatting was a little bit easier on my back.
Yeah.
Simply because the bar is lower, and when you're down in that squat position, the weight is more over your hips.
Yeah.
When you're down in the hole, as opposed to high bar squatting, where it might be a little bit in front of the hips, or you got to get back more in order to get that load over your hips. And then as far as bench pressing goes, I think the realization that I came to a long time ago is while I can get a good arch, I'm just not meant to be one of those guys that's got that huge, massive arch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd love to have it because I know that I would be less range of motion and my bench press would be a whole lot better. But I just had to kind of just do what I could do. Now it's gotten better as I get better every year. But yeah, I wish I could get that big arch, but I just can't. You know, if I have a feeling if I did, it would be like trying to progress too fast in either squatting or bench pressing. It would kind of put me in a hole.
Yeah.
You know, where I have issues where I can't bench press or I can't train or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just had to kind of just know that, okay, you have to do what you can do, and you know, kind of just let it evolve from there. So yeah, I think that's kind of how I've dealt with those big three lifts.
Yeah.
Over all the years.
Yeah, I think it's sort of there's so much to take into account, and I think maybe at some point deadlifting and squatting will feel good to me. I'd love to try out to give sumo a good go, because I've tried conventional, and if I do conventional on the deadlift machines, it feels pretty good, like decent. But I found if I use a bar, it just feels like my body is like being torn in two different directions. It's not like extremely painful, but it's just I notice my body will just feel wrecked the days after. And yeah, especially I'm having a lot of upper back pain right now, and I find it so hard to incorporate deadlifts and then make them still work. And I don't know if they'll be necessary for my back development. The only thing that does frustrate me about deadlifts is I cannot my right erector is like a fucking tree trunk, but then my left erector, it barely exists. Like it's insane. Same with my lats. Like right lat is like normal, left lat it's normal up to a point, and then it just goes into a little spindle. It's very insane. How have you found, like, symmetry wise and imbalance wise, how much do you think that's impacted your bodybuilding? Because it's almost like, for me, this is a very selfish question, but it's my podcast, so I find, for me, the thing that scares me about bodybuilding is I want to do very, very well bodybuilding. I want to get an insane physique, not necessarily win. I don't care about winning. I want to show people with scoliosis like how good your physique can be with scoliosis, and I just want to, and I think, yeah, basically I just want to get the best physique I can possibly get. But I think to be evaluated well in bodybuilding, I need to get symmetry and stuff like that. How have you found symmetry has been an issue, and then how have you sort of dealt with this whole symmetry?
Okay, good question. And kind of multi-fold in a way. First of all, I kind of come on to bodybuilding during a time, I was pretty lucky, if I really think about it, because when I came onto the bodybuilding scene, that I could attain had never really been seen on the natural bodybuilding stage before. Yeah. And I mean, really, unless you could match my conditioning and have good symmetry, you were not going to beat me. Yeah. And I don't even know why, that was just the eyes of the judges. And maybe it was just a time when it was like, wow, this is amazing conditioning that we've only seen, in the ranks of untested, federations. But yeah, back in that day, I beat lots of bodybuilders, or at least placed better than a lot of bodybuilders that had a lot better symmetry than I did.
Yeah.
But simply because I was, just skinless.
Yeah.
I would get the nod. And so, yeah, really my time when I became a pro bodybuilder was really better timing more than anything. Because in today's day and age, I'm never going to beat those bodybuilders if they get in that kind of condition. And that kind of condition is getting more and more prevalent. There's a lot of suffering involved in getting that kind of condition, but it's getting more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
But really, like with my symmetry, here recently, I had a couple bodybuilders that I was talking to at a competition that Alberto, Jeff, and I were at.
Yeah.
And they were surprised to hear me say, matching conditioning, I will not ever beat Alberto and Jeff. I'll never place better than them, ever.
Right.
My only chance, and I see these deer in the headlight looks, these big eyes looking at me like, why would you even say that,
Yeah.
And then I just kind of expanded and say, unless I go in and have my hip bones shaved down 3 inches on each side. Because when you think about symmetry in the classical sense, you're basically talking about V-taper.
Yeah.
You're talking about wide shoulders
and
contrasting down to a nice, small waist. And, if you ever see pictures of Alberto and I on stage, our shoulders are about the same width.
Yeah.
But Alberto's shoulders look wider simply because he's got a smaller waist. When he gets down to insane levels of conditioning, he's got a 25-inch circumference on that waist, or 26 or whatever. Yeah. That's very pretty. That is very pretty on the bodybuilding stage.
Yeah.
Me, there's no way I'm getting less than a 31. No way. And I have problems holding my pants up all the time because I'm basically a block right there in my midsection. I have nothing to hang my pants on. You know what I mean? And so there's nothing I can do about that. And my scoliosis and my spondylolisthesis had nothing to do, with the width of my hips.
Yeah.
And so, my strategy to combat that was to essentially try and grow my shoulders and my lats as wide as I possibly can. If I can't make my waist smaller, or narrower, I guess you might say, the only thing I can do is to make my shoulders and my lats wider, right? Yeah. I have done that. I've accomplished that. My V-taper is better. But, we're natural bodybuilders. We're only going to get those muscles so big, so fast, right? And, Father Time is always out there. So I hope that answers that question. I kind of got on a tangent there.
No, I feel like, what about when it comes to, did you have many muscular imbalances or any imbalances that you thought, okay, my right pec's bigger than my left or anything in that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be honest with you, James, everybody does. Everybody has. You ever see the pictures where they take the right side of your face and flip it over to the left side of your face?
Oh yeah.
And you look totally different. You know what I mean? Nobody is perfectly symmetrical from right to left. Nobody is. Now, I really noticed it when I got really lean because I could see all those muscles and I can see, my right lat is more developed than my left lat. My left pec just has a different shape to it than my right pec, Now, I think those would have been there regardless. But, the fact that my T-spine swings more to my left side than my right side, maybe the right side's got to work a little bit harder, keeping the shoulder packed on overhead presses and bench presses and things like that, right? Now, what I have learned is that my scoliosis causes more imbalances lifting, actually lifting.
Right.
Like, my squat is pretty darn ugly because I feel like I'm standing straight, but the right side comes up much slower than the left side.
Really?
A lot of times I don't even have to put a collar on the plates on the left side of my bar because they're not going anywhere. But on the right side, they're going to slide right off. You know. So yeah, lifting wise, there's a lot of imbalances that kind of get in the way, I guess you might say.
Yeah.
When I'm bench pressing, I've got a certain amount of what they call rotary scoliosis. So like my left butt cheek will stay on the bench when I'm bench pressing, my right butt cheek won't.
Ooh.
When I squat, you know, you can if I squat down into the hole and just kind of hold that, you can look at my butt cheeks and see that the one ischial tuberosity is specifically my right one is lower than my left one.
Right.
So I really can't afford to cut depth on any squats.
Yeah. Because
there's a pretty good chance that if I do, one side's going to be lower than the other, and the official on the left side or the right side, whichever, is going to red light me. You know, and that could all I need is just one red light and it's no good. So yeah, that's my imbalances from the spinal issues have kind of more so been problematic for actual lifting than actual bodybuilding.
So would you say would you say it's more of an issue, like, do you think, even like for myself, I'd say my imbalances are pretty severe because I'm like, strength wise they feel similar and things sort of move at a similar rate. I just noticed my scapula are a bit uncomfortable, but generally it's a pretty similar rate. But I just find the actual visibility of my pecs, especially like my right pec, since I'm not sure if you can really see, but basically my right shoulder, if I was going to run my hand across it, it would fly off into the front, but then if I was going to run on my back shoulder, it would just run off to the sort of behind me. So it's sort of basically in general my right shoulder, like I can get it back, but it's very hard to keep it back there. And I think that has sort of contributed to pec imbalances and all that. So would you say for bodybuilding most of the imbalances can be combated?
I think they can be combated, yes. I think anything could be combated.
Yeah.
Now, will you win? Will you overcome it? You know, that's going to be kind of a big question, you know. Because I mean, after all, you can only do so much. You know, you can fight as much as you can, but you know, my good friend Eric Helms was combating an imbalance between his right shoulder and his left shoulder, and so his thinking was just do side laterals on the one side, the side that's imbalanced. And I get asked that kind of question all the time. Should I just do one arm? You know, should I just do one arm biceps to bring those imbalances, those asymmetries a little bit closer together? I mean, yeah, sure, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, at least you're battling. At least you're trying to do something about it. But will you win is the question. And one thing Eric found out, and Eric, he'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, and please forgive me, Eric, if I'm incorrect with this. But basically, what he ended up doing was actually causing himself further mobility imbalances by just training one side, you know, or doing more repetitions or whatever it was that he did. And he actually didn't close up the difference any. You know what I mean? And like I said, he forgive me if I'm wrong, Eric, but I think that it was basically the same. I think the imbalance was still there. Regardless of you know what he was attempting to do to close that imbalance. You know. So yeah, I think by all means battle, you know, but I think make your expectations realistic. You know, that pec imbalance that you have on that side, it probably is a pretty good chance that it came from, you know, your issues. You might have had that regardless. You know, and battle it, do whatever you can, but just don't beat yourself up and think you're doing something wrong. If it doesn't work out like you wanted it to, you know,
like I'm
mean?
almost expecting,
and don't be afraid to change your strategy either. You know?
Like I think it sort of rings true with me. When you said that you basically had to be the leanest on stage and that was your card, that was the thing you had, and I think that's sort of my card as well, because I know, like for me, putting on weight is hard as Like, oh my God. I find it so hard to put on weight, but I think cutting for me will be almost fun. Like, yeah.
You won't have to eat so much. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I think that's going to be my thing is I know I can get leaner than anyone else, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I think that I'm excited to see what my imbalances look like when I'm that lean and how much it actually, how much of it is actually there, which I think will be very, very interesting to see. But yeah, when it comes to nearly nearing sort of the time frame, but I'd like to finish off with one last question. What would be your main piece of advice for just the general lifter who maybe they have conditions, maybe they don't, they just want to be the healthiest, strongest, happiest, physically best looking version of themselves for as long as possible? What would be your advice for them to keep as healthy as they can for as long as they can and enjoy it while they're doing it?
Mm-hmm. You know, really, to be honest with you, you hit the nail on the head just in your question. You know, find enjoyment in it. I a lot of times when I coach athletes, I make it my mission to get them to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole reason we call it 3D muscle journey, right? Let's enjoy the process. And a lot of times what ends up happening is when you focus on the process and you focus on the enjoyment through the process and not the results, you end up getting the results that you were after. If you're always focusing on the results, what usually ends up happening is you end up doubting yourself. You end up trying all kinds of different systems. The more you change, the more, you know, you digress and fall backwards, the less progress you make.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my advice is find ways, you know, to obviously use the fundamentals. Don't program hop, you know, don't change things up, you know, every time you step in the gym. Stick to the fundamentals, you know, auto-regulate exercises where it makes the most sense, not the ones that you need to make your staples. But at the same time, find ways of enjoyment in the process. Eric did a great little review on our YouTube channel back when he was doing Science and Application with Eric Helms, where they studied a bunch of children that were drawing. They were drawing pictures, and they loved drawing pictures. And they decided, well, you know what, we're going to do a little intervention here. We're going to give them a reward. We're going to give them a reward, money, I think it was money or something like that, for every picture that they draw. Well, pretty soon they were losing interest. Yeah. They weren't even drawing pictures anymore. It's like, well, I didn't draw pictures because I wanted to get something or obtain something from it. It's just fun to draw, you know? And so, yeah, that's my advice. Let's find enjoyment in the process. People they start learning about macros, for example, and that's the magic, you know, and I want to do that. I want to do what they're doing. I want to track and hit 50 grams of fat and 200 grams of carbs and 250 grams of protein every day. Yeah. Well, you know what? There's a place and time for that, but like now, let's just kind of think to ourselves, well, let's use this knowledge and, you know, maybe we'll just track our food. Maybe you'll get a little bit of enjoyment in it. Just tracking calories. Don't even try to hit any targets. Yeah. Just learn. Enjoy learning that, oh my gosh, look at there. A sandwich at Subway's got 950 calories, you know. You know, get enjoyment in training, you know, especially if you're a beginner, you don't have to progress. You just need to train. Just go in there and have fun, you know, doing some training. And then once you are getting to be, you know, novice and intermediate, find those exercises that you really, really love to do and just do them all the time. Yeah. You're going to get really good. And just the fact that you're getting really good at those exercises is going to make you really strong. Yeah. I had a guy comment on my Instagram page one time. He goes, why is it that your squat, your bench, and your deadlift are so freaking strong, yet your overhead press and your pull downs are so dismal? You know? And I was like, well, you know what? It's not because my squat, my bench, and deadlift are really that strong. It's because I'm really freaking good at them. I do them all the time for years and years and years, you know? I love it. I love squatting, benching, and deadlifting, you know? And it feels good to know that I'm good at those things, right? Yeah, focus on the enjoyment of the journey, the process, not the results. And what's probably going to end up happening is you're going to get the results you were after. Whereas if you focus on the results, you're going to be those kids that are like, well, shit, I don't even want to draw anymore. Screw that.
Yeah, I think it's very, very true because I think, like, for myself, I've been blown away by the results, but it's not like at the start. That's why I started, but over the last like 3 years that I've been lifting, it's like I've been engrossed in the process, and it's like I've been engrossed in actually getting in the gym, and I've been like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go and squat today. I can't wait to do this and do that, and it's like just all that stuff. Yeah, and I think it definitely changes the whole mindset about it and makes it a much more positive experience. I'd like sort of you to pimp yourself now. Where can people find you? Where can people find your Instagram, 3DMJ on YouTube, all that sort of stuff?
Okay. I'll do my best. I'm not very good. I kind of like to be the guy that's kind of behind the scenes, talking one-on-one like you and I are now, you know?
Yeah.
That's my strength, is the one-on-one, right? But yeah, I mean, obviously 3dmusclejourney.com, that's our website. You know, you can find me on any of the 3D Muscle Journey platforms. Yeah. You're going to see a lot of Eric Helms and Alberto Nunez and Jeff Alberts on there, but usually you'll find, you know, me somewhere in there. And so yeah, the Team 3DMJ is the Instagram page. Pretty much Team 3DMJ is where we are a lot of times. Yeah. So Team 3DMJ on Twitter, Team 3DMJ on Instagram. Yeah. I think YouTube is also Team 3DMJ. Yeah. And so you'll find me somewhere in there quite a bit. Sweet. Not as much as the other guys, because they're much better at that whole social media thing than I am. Yeah. But you'll find me there. Now, if you want more of Brad, I'm at 3DMJ Coach. Right. Both on Instagram and Twitter. So it's our 3DMJ and then Coach. Sweet. Both Instagram and Twitter. I'm there. And then, gosh, I can't think of anywhere else, you know, that I am out there. But yeah, 3dmusclejourney.com, 3DMJ Vault. Yeah. That's our educational platform. Yeah. So that's just 3DMJ and then Vault. And then, yeah, any of the at Team 3DMJ, Twitters, Facebooks, Instagrams, YouTubes, etc. Sweet. Cool. And I also, if you're listening and you're like, what is 3DMJ? I've never heard of it. Basically, it's since I started following 3DMJ and then a few other bodybuilders, it's completely opened my eyes to natural bodybuilding and how possible it is to get be insanely just have an insane physique and have an insane for me, powerlifting is not an interest at this point, maybe in the future, but it's just mind-blowing how they've sort of molded this coaching strategy and this sort of coaching mindset and put it into what I would say is probably the best coaching team that I've ever seen, just because it's so well-rounded and they achieve balance without compromising, and that's it just blows my mind. Absolutely amazing. If you'd like to check it out, go to any of the links that Brad mentioned, and they'll all be linked in the show notes as well. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Student Side Hustle. I would appreciate so much if you would leave a review if you'd like to hear more of what I'm saying. Then I would love if you would follow me on Instagram or check out my other social media, all linked in the show notes. And again, I would just like to say thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful evening and study hard.